The Night It Rained Stars. A Love Story for Adam and Helen. Part 1 of 2. Part 1. The First Glance. Or, How Fire Begins. September smelled of old rain and eucalyptus when Adam walked into the bookshop. He was the kind of man you noticed without meaning to. Not because he was conventionally handsome, though he was, but because he moved with a deliberate slowness, as if every step had been considered carefully. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a gray coat that seemed to have seen too many autumns, his large hands sliding along the spines of books with an almost calligraphic touch, Helen watched him from behind the counter, over the top of her horn-rimmed glasses. She was the owner of this small bookshop, tucked between a bakery and a watchmaker's workshop on a street in Bucharest that nobody searched for on purpose, yet everyone somehow found. The customers called it the Bookshop of Broken Hearts, though the official name was something else entirely. Helen had chosen every book on those shelves with a surgeon's precision. Each volume had to have broken a soul, or put one back together. Looking for something about nights, said Adam without lifting his eyes from the shelf. Not astronomy. About nights. Helen set her pen down. Do you have a preference for author? Or for what kind of night? He turned toward her. His eyes were the color of amber, or perhaps old whiskey, or perhaps they had no fixed color at all but rather a temperature. And the temperature was that of something which has never fully cooled. The kind of night where you cannot sleep because you feel the absence of something you have never actually had. Helen was silent for 1 second too long. Then we have quite a selection, she said at last. She led him through the shelves with the confidence you only develop when a space belongs to you truly. Not legally, but in the soul. Her fingers slid along the book spines like familiar piano keys. She wore a dark green dress that fell to her knees, and her black hair was loosely pinned up, with a few strands escaping at the nape of her neck. Adam watched her hands. This one, she said, pulling out a slim volume. And this one. And perhaps, yes, this one too. She held out 3 books. Their hands touched for a fraction of a second as he took them. No more than 2 leaves brushing in the wind. But they both felt it. And they both pretended not to. My name is Adam, he said, looking at her directly. I know, she said. You paid by card last time. Last time? You came 3 weeks ago. You bought Pessoa and spent an hour by the window at the back. He smiled for the first time. A slow, asymmetric smile that started at the right corner of his mouth and only reached his eyes at the very end. I didn't notice you watching me. I wasn't watching you, said Helen with perfect composure. I was watching my bookshop. Part 2. The autumn they talked. Or, the slow kindling. He came back every week. Sometimes Tuesdays, sometimes Thursdays, never on weekends. As though he wanted to find her alone, away from the crowds that invaded Saturdays. And he did find her alone, or nearly so. Perhaps an old customer asleep in the armchair beside the tile stove, perhaps an orange cat that belonged to nobody and yet lived there all the same. They talked. God, how they talked. About books, at first. In the safety of that neutral territory. About what it means to read a novel and feel that an author dead 2 centuries ago wrote it for you, personally, as a letter. About the characters you love and could never explain to anyone without sounding a little mad. Then about other things. Adam was an architect. He designed spaces for wealthy clients who wanted large houses, and for charitable organizations that wanted small clinics, and the second kind interested him far more, even if it paid far worse. He had grown up in Yash, in a family of engineers, and had been the only one in that house who read poetry. In secret, the way other boys smoked. Helen had grown up in France, in Lyon, the daughter of a Romanian philosophy professor and a woman from Provence who baked bread and said very little. She had returned to Romania at 30 with a bag full of books and a heart that had needed a complete restart, for reasons she mentioned only once, in passing, and which Adam did not pursue. Though he remembered every word. She was 34 and knew exactly what she wanted from life, except for the things that actually mattered. He was 38 and knew how to build spaces where others could be happy, but had long forgotten how to build anything for himself. On a Tuesday in November, when it was raining so hard the street had completely disappeared into noise, he stayed until closing time without realizing it. Helen switched off the lights in the back room and found him with an open book in his lap, unread, staring out the window. "I should go," he said, without moving. "You should," she agreed, without turning on the front light. They sat in the half-dark, with the sound of rain filling all the space between them. It was a small space. It kept getting smaller. "What is it that you're missing?" she asked him finally, her voice low, as if the question were meant for herself and not for him. He looked at her. "Right now?" "Nothing," he said. And that was the first time Helen did not know what to answer. Part 3. The first touch. Or, the point of no return. It happened in December, 2 days before Christmas, when everyone was too busy with other things to visit bookshops. Adam had brought wine. Red, from a region he had visited in his youth and had spent weeks tracking down through various shops. Helen had brought cheese and dark bread, as if she had known, as if they had arranged it, though they had arranged nothing at all. They sat on the floor of the bookshop, backs against the shelves, with a single bulb lit somewhere in the rear, and the wine was good and the conversation was even better, and at some point Helen laughed at something he said. A real laugh, unrestrained, which made her lean forward slightly and place her hand on his knee to steady herself. She stopped immediately. The hand stayed. Adam did not move. He did not breathe, it seemed to her. He was looking at her hand on his knee with the attention you give to things that are precious and fragile. "I'm sorry," she said, but she did not pull the hand away. "No, you're not," he said. It was true. She wasn't. They looked at each other. The wine was half finished, the light was dim, and in the bookshop of broken hearts 2 people were realizing simultaneously that something had ended before it had begun. That comfortable distance. That safety of talking without risk. Adam raised his hand and touched her cheek very gently. Only with his fingertips, as though he needed to confirm she was real. She was real. Warm and real, and with her eyes closed now, leaning imperceptibly toward his palm. "Helen," he said. Just that. She opened her eyes. And she kissed him. Which she had not planned. Which she had not even realized she wanted until the second she did it. A short, tentative kiss, a question asked with lips. He answered. And his answer was not a question. He kissed her a second time, deeper, with his hands in her hair which was loose now, with her back pressed gently against the shelf of romance novels, which might have been funny but was not. It was simply perfect in its imperfect, unplanned way. They stopped for air. "This has been happening for a long time," he said. "Since the first day," she confirmed. "Why did you wait so long?" She smiled, her lips still close to his. "I was waiting to be sure it wasn't just a very good book making me sentimental." "And now you're sure?" She took his hand and placed it over her heart. It was beating hard, too hard for a calm woman. "Now I'm sure," she said. To be continued in part 2. The Night It Rained Stars. A Love Story for Adam and Helen. Part 2 of 2. Part 4. The Night. Or, Everything That Cannot Be Said in Words. They did not rush. That was what Helen would have remembered later, if she'd had to describe that night to someone. Not the intensity, not the desire, though both existed and were real and profound. But the fact that they did not rush. As though they both understood instinctively that something waited for this long deserves to be tasted slowly, like the first good wine from a bottle opened with care. They went upstairs to her apartment above the bookshop. 3 rooms full of books and plants and candles, and the smell of coffee that had soaked into the walls over years. A home that resembled perfectly the woman who lived in it. Adam stopped in the middle of the room and looked around. "It looks like you," he said. "Good or bad?" "Extraordinary." She lit a few candles. Not for atmosphere, or perhaps for that too, but first of all because she could not bear harsh white light in moments that mattered. The candles threw soft shadows across the walls and across Adam's skin as he watched her from the center of the room, still, letting her make her gestures, letting her be in her own space. She liked that. That he did not rush. That he left room. "Come here," she said. What followed could not be told in sequence, because it did not happen in sequence. It happened in layers. Like music, not like a story. The first layer was his hands. Large and steady and yet so careful, as though he were working with rare material. They moved along her arms, her shoulders, undoing the buttons of the dark green dress with a patience that made her tremble slightly. Not from cold. "You are beautiful," he said with a simplicity that was more eloquent than any elaboration. Helen did not answer. Instead she undid the buttons of his shirt, with fingers that did not tremble, though her heart kept beating too hard. Beneath the shirt was warmth and solidity, and she pressed her palm flat against his chest and felt him breathe. The second layer was his voice, low, close to her ear, saying simple things. Her name, sometimes, or nothing at all, just his changed breathing which said everything. They lay down on her bed, covered with an old French quilt she had bought years ago at a flea market in Lyon and carried through 3 apartments because she could never bring herself to leave it behind. He looked at her from close, one hand raised, tracing the outline of her face without touching her, a centimeter away, as though he were drawing her. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "I am memorizing you," he said. Something in her gave way at those words. That last layer of glass we all carry between ourselves and the world, the one we build after every disappointment, after every departure, after every morning we wake and the space beside us is empty. That layer gave way, silently, without drama, like ice in early spring. And then they made love. Not with the urgency of a first time, which can sometimes be more fear than desire, more need than choice. But with a slow luxury, exploring, pausing, returning. He learned how she responded, what made her close her eyes and what made her open them wider. She learned his weight, his warmth, the way he said her name differently when he wanted her more deeply, less controlled, more undone. It was raining outside. That December rain that cannot decide between sleet and water and falls chaotically against windows. The candles burned low. Somewhere in the apartment, a clock marked hours that neither of them was counting anymore. The third layer was the silence afterward. The heaviest and the best. Helen with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. Him with his hand in her hair, still, heavy in the good way. They did not sleep right away. "What are you thinking about?" she asked him in the near-complete darkness, with one last candle trembling somewhere. "Spaces," he said. "What kind of spaces?" He was quiet for a moment. "I design spaces where people can be well. But I never knew what a space where I could be well would look like. Until now." Helen lifted her eyes toward him, though she could see very little in the dark. "Is that a compliment or an architectural proposal?" He laughed. A real laugh, unguarded. "Perhaps both." She pressed her head more firmly against his chest. "It requires a great deal of work," she warned him. "Good spaces are not built quickly." "I know," he said. "I'm an architect." Outside the rain had quieted somewhat. Or perhaps they simply could not hear it as clearly anymore. The candle in the corner went out by itself, leaving a thin thread of smoke. They slept. Epilogue. The morning. Or, the beginning. She woke first, as she always did. The December light came in horizontally through the half-drawn blinds, gray and gentle, without demands. Adam slept facing her, breathing steadily, with an expression that the daytime must have kept completely hidden. That open, undefended expression people wear when they do not know they are being watched. Helen stayed still and looked at him. She thought of all the books downstairs in the shop. All the love stories she knew by heart, from every literature, every era. She knew that real love resembles none of them and resembles all of them at the same time. She knew that what she felt now, this quiet and certain warmth in her chest, was worth more than any storm. He opened his eyes. He found her immediately, as if he had been looking for her even in sleep. "Good morning," she said. He smiled. The same slow, asymmetric smile, from the right corner of his mouth. It rained stars last night, he said. It did not rain stars. It rained sleet. He looked at her steadily. It rained stars, he repeated. And Helen, who knew all the words from all the books, could not find any better than these. All right, she said. It rained stars, and she turned toward him, in the gray December light, in the morning that smelled of extinguished candles and old wine and something new, something that did not yet have a name but was in a hurry to find one. The end. If this story found you at the right moment, if it gave you something warm to carry into your evening, share it with someone who needs the same. And if you want more nights like this one, more beginnings, more stories, more of whatever this was, subscribe to Midnight Confessions. We'll always have another story waiting for you. In the dark. Just like this one.